And now it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Dr. Moss Murray, I was going to say KGB, but it's actually CSIRO. And it's great for us that he's here, and he's going to talk to us about the situation that we see in the news regular at the moment, and that is the global warming situation. He's going to talk to us about that. Then after that, he'll be handing back to me. Thank you, Dr. Moss Murray. Let's give him a hand.
Hello. Is it on? Hello. Yes. Hello? Yes. Right. Always like getting clapped at the beginning because you want to clap at the end. Right. I'm not one of these people who sits beside a lectern. I sort of walk around, so bad luck, you're not at the front, you're going to cop me. Global warming defined. The first time I gave a talk about global warming, the greenhouse effect, etc., working out was 1984. Gave that talk 45 times. It ended up in university libraries and all sorts of things. My history is, I'm a metallurgist. I study metals. I was working for CSIRO, I had a team of 50 people working for me. And I got interested in other things, like bionic ears and all sorts of stuff. And part of it was global warming, because CSIRO had this group of that sort of specialised in it. I had a very good friend who was second in charge of the Antarctic Division, looking at the change in the whole Earth, what was happening. So it started to get up all this information together, and it's continued since then. So this is version number, I don't know, 8 or 9. So I hope you enjoy it. Global warming defined. Nobody but nobody can sit there and say, I have the answer. So this isn't it. If you can't get the answer about global warming, sorry, you're not going to hear it. But this is defining it. At one side of the equation, you've got Al Gore. For those who've seen him, Al Gore sits there and he thumps the table and he says, this means this. On totally the other side of the table, you've got people who sit there and say, driving a big V8 engine and using up a huge amount of fuel has no effect on the atmosphere whatsoever. So you've got one side highly emotive, the other side highly emotive. We're going to talk about both sides and what's really happening. So it should be a bit of fun. Global warming defined. What is global warming, first up? Well, definition of global warming, gradual increase in the Earth's surface temperature. It's getting warmer. Gee, that was difficult, wasn't it? Global warming is it's getting warmer. Okay. The debate, is the observed global warming natural or man-made? There is only one way you can find out. Run the Earth the way it is now, then go back in time and run it without the Industrial Revolution. And watch the difference. That's the scientific way of doing it. Now, I can't do that. So we'll go through other things. And they show that polar bears stuck on the ice surrounded by water, the poor things. Okay, that's an Al Gore photo that he uses anyway. Okay, is the Earth getting warmer or isn't it? Well, let's look at the data and see what it says. If you look at the variation here, this is a new gadget which Pastor Darcy loaned me, so if it doesn't work, it's his fault. Okay, if you look, there's 1860 and there's 2000 in this graph, a bit over 2001. And what you see is this is the average Earth temperature based on the average of 1961 to 1990. Right the way along, it was about 0.4 of a degree lower than it was in 1970-ish. So it went along like that, and then it slowly started to get up, and then it sort of meandered a bit, and then it got up again. So that, they're saying, is global warming. Okay, is it just one of those things that goes up, it goes down, it goes up, it goes down? Who cares? Well, somehow they worked out, looking at how some animals only exist in certain temperatures, so you can find out what existed in the sea and what didn't and how it behaved. So you go back from 2000, you go back to the year 1000, and here's the temperature meandering along of the Earth, going up and down, going up and down. Then you see, zip, right now. That's what's got people concerned, is that it isn't a cyclic thing, at least if you go back 1,000 years. It's gone up fairly fast in the last few years. Okay, since the Industrial Revolution, if you look at it a bit closer, this is the temperature for each year. You can see there's a fair bit of variation, but in general it's increasing, and in the last few years it's increasing a lot. Right. So, but now, if you look in the newspapers, what they say is, let's look at it even closer, and they quote little figures like this, that if you go from 1980 to 2007, there's the temperature going up and down on almost a monthly basis. Well, you'll notice that in winter, except for in Townsville, in winter it's cold. In Melbourne, winter is very cold, and summer's hot. And then, so you see the temperature going up and down and going up and down, and sometimes you have a hot summer and sometimes you don't. And then they plot this out and say, see, it's actually starting to drop now. So global warming has finished. The trouble with that is you're looking at something awfully closely, and before we were looking at an average over 200 years. It's dangerous to look at things too closely. If you look at, you can't see a trend if you look too closely, and short-term variations confuse you. For example, if you look at that finger, it's very hard to tell that it's hit. You agree? Now, that's a picture of me. So, by looking at a fingernail, you can't tell what's going on. So people look at the variation and they say, well, I don't know about global warming, it's a pretty cold winter this year. Doesn't count. You've got to look at the whole trend. So newspapers quite often plot things differently. And they'll plot it from, 49.8% going up to 50.02%. You think, yeah. There's statistics and there's lies and there's all sorts of things. So if you look at it, this is the data right up to 2006. And what you can see is the temperature's going along. Let's say this is the actual temperature, this is the average moving along. As this says, the 5-year mean moving average. And it has continued to increase over the last 5-6 years. You'll notice there's a peak there, then it goes down, then it goes meandering, then it goes up again. Record warmth in 2005 is notable because global temperatures have not received any boost from the tropical El Nino this year. You know there's El Nino and El Niña. El Niña is the cold water stream, El Nino is the hot water stream coming down. So there was a peak, and that was because El Nino was particularly strong that year. Then it dropped down and then it comes up, and it says the global warming, the prior record year, 1998, on the contrary, was lifted 0.2 degrees, etc. But in 2005, there was no El Nino effect. Global warming is now 0.6 of a degree centigrade in the past 3 decades and 0.8 C in the past century. And you sit there and say, I really noticed it was 0.6 of a degree warmer. Again, if you're in Melbourne, you tend to notice these things, but up here you wouldn't. Okay. So, if you look at the global temperature, and so this is a picture from NASA, the global picture from 1900s. Blue means it was colder than it is in 1980. White means it was the same temperature as 1980. Red means it was a lot hotter. So you've got 1900, the temperature of the Earth looked like that. 1910, it was a bit colder. 1920, it started to warm up. 1930, it was a pretty warm year. If you look it up there, it's starting to get red. 1940, yes, it was still pretty warm. 1950 cooled off a bit, but still there's a fair bit more white now and not as much blue. In 1960, 1970 is starting to get a lot of white and getting the yellows in. 1980, a lot of yellows and a little bit of red. 1990 is a lot of yellows and starting to get a reasonable amount of reds. 2000, you're getting a lot of red, meaning it's starting to get pretty warm. And across the thing. And then you say, okay, 2006, which is the latest data, look at that. It is getting very warm all the way around here. It's mainly yellow around here, but it's a lot warmer across the whole Earth. So is global warming occurring? It appears so. If we look at this is a movie from 1890 going up. And what you'll see is again blue and a little bit of white and blue and a little bit of white, and the white and the yellows bounce up and down, and it's getting a little bit more whites and a little bit less blues and a little bit more red.